Hi readers, Chris here. Welcome to my channel. If you do not follow me over on Instagram, then you may not know that this past week has been a bit of a rough week for me. If you can't tell, my voice isn't quite where it normally is because last week on Tuesday, I had a positive COVID test. So after I popped positive, the rest of Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday were all kind of a blur. I could barely keep my eyes open. Friday started to feel a little better. Saturday started to feel a little bit better. And today, I've been really tired again, but I'm trying to get back to normal. And part of my getting back to normal is doing this video about upcoming releases for next week, June 2022. Bear with me, I might take lots of breaks, but I don't know if it's because of being sick or what. My brain is just not functioning at full capacity. I could not narrow this list down to just 10 books, so I actually picked 12 for June. 12 books that I'm really excited about that are coming out in June. These books are not in any sort of order other than by publication date. So I'm going to jump in with my first pick for June, and that is going to be Ordinary Monsters by J.M. Miro. I'm just going to read the blurb about this book on Amazon, and you can tell me if it sounds like something you'd be interested in. So, Ordinary Monsters is about 16-year-old Charlie Ovid. Despite a brutal childhood in Mississippi, doesn't have a scar on him. His body heals itself, whether he wants it to or not. Marlowe, a foundling from a railway freight car, shines with a strange bluish light. He can melt or mend flesh. When Alice Quickie, a jaded detective with her own troubled past, is recruited to escort them to safety, all three begin a journey into the nature of difference and belonging and the shadowy edges of the monstrous. What follows is a story of wonder and betrayal, from the gaslit streets of London and the wooden theaters of Meiji-era Tokyo to an eerie estate outside Edinburgh where children with gifts, like Kameko, a witch child and twister of dust, and Ribs, a girl who cloaks herself in invisibility, are forced to combat the forces that threaten their safety. There, the world of the dead and the world of the living threaten to collide, and as secrets within the Institute unfurl, Kameko, Marlowe, Charlie, Ribs, and the rest of the talents will discover the truth about their abilities and the nature of what is stalking them, that the worst monsters sometimes come bearing the sweetest gifts. Riveting in its scope, exquisitely written, Ordinary Monsters presents a catastrophic vision of the Victorian world and of the gifted, broken children who must save it. I mean, this book sounds like it has everything that I would love. It's like Victorian era, so it's historical, it's fantasy, we've got monsters, we've got superpowers. I mean, this just sounds like such a fun ride. So if it sounds like a fun ride to you, Ordinary Monsters will be available on June 7th. My number 2 pick for June is going to be Forging Silver into Stars by Brigid Kemmerer. If this name sounds familiar to you, she is also the author of A Curse So Dark and Lonely, I think it's called, that series. I'll put it up here when I find it. Also, Defy the Night. This is her latest series, and this sounds super, super, super cool. So, in this book, magic has been banished in the land of Shale Shallow for as long as best friends Jack and Kaylin can remember. They once loved the stories of the powerful mage-smiths and magical scarvers who could conjure fire or control ice, but now they've learned that magic only leads to danger. Magic is what killed Kaylin's parents, leaving her alone to raise her younger sister. Magic never helped Jax, whose leg was crushed in an accident that his father has been punishing him for ever since. Magic won't save either of them when the tax collector comes calling, threatening to take their homes if they can't pay what they owe. Meanwhile, Jax and Kaylin are astonished to learn that magic has returned to Shale shallow, can't read, in the form of a mage-smith who's now married to their queen. Now, the people of Shallow are expected to allow dangerous magic in their midst, and no one is happy about it. When a stranger rides into town offering Jax and Kaylin silver in exchange for holding secret messages for an anti-magic faction, the choice is obvious, even if it means they may be aiding in a plot to destroy their new king. It's a risk they're both willing to take. That is, until another visitor arrives, the handsome Lord Tycho, the king's courier, the man who's been tasked with discovering who's conspiring against the throne. Suddenly, Jax and Kaylin find themselves embroiled in a world of shifting alliances, dangerous flirtations, and ancient magic, where even the deepest loyalties will be tested. Again, another book that sounds like it has everything that I love. There's like a little bit of, it sounds like there's some courtly intrigue going here, alliances and backstabbing, and I love all that stuff. Plus, obviously, we've got magic thrown in here. You're going to notice there's a lot of fantasy in June. It's Fantasy June. So this definitely sounds like something I am super excited for. If it sounds like something you'd be excited for, Forging Silver into Stars will be available on June 7th. My third pick for June is going to be a super cool sounding book called Hell Followed With Us by Andrew Joseph White. This is an author I've never heard of before, but this book sounds super, super cool. So, 16-year-old trans boy Benji is on the run from the cult that raised him, the fundamentalist sect that unleashed Armageddon and decimated the world's population. Desperately, he searches for a place where the cult can't get their hands on him, or, more importantly, the bioweapon they infected him with. Yes, that's right, bioweapon. But when cornered by monsters born from all the destruction, Benji is rescued by a group of teens from the local LGBTQ center, affectionately known as the ALC. The ALC's leader, Nick, is gorgeous, autistic, and a deadly shot. And he knows Benji's darkest secret. The cult's bioweapon is mutating him into a monster deadly enough to wipe humanity from the earth once and for all. Still, Nick offers Benji shelter among his ragtag group of queer teens as long as Benji can control the monster and use its power to defend the ALC. Eager to belong, Benji accepts Nick's terms until he discovers that the ALC's mysterious leader has a hidden agenda and more than a few secrets of his own. I mean, again, obviously there's a lot going on in this book, but I think it is super cool that it's like this post-apocalyptic type story. It's like fantasy, it's sci-fi, bioweapons, but then we also have some characters that we don't usually hear about in these type of stories, which are mostly, obviously, our main character being a trans character. I think that's super, super cool. So if you think that Hell Followed Us also sounds cool, it'll be available on June 7th. My fourth pick for June is going to be a great thriller called Go Hunt Me by Kelly DeVos. So this story is about Alex Rush, who is ready for the trip of a lifetime. Alex and her friends have made some creepily awesome films together throughout high school, so with only a few months left to go before they go their separate ways for college, they're determined to make the best one yet, an epic short film that reimagines the story of Dracula, filmed on location in a remote castle in Romania. But when they get there, it's not quite the majestic setting they planned for. Menacing weapons line the walls. The twisted halls are easy to get lost in, and with no connection to the outside world, the group is unexpectedly off the grid. After just a few hours spent under its roof, Alex and her friends have no trouble imagining how this dark, terrifying castle inspired one of the most enduring horror novels of all time. Only soon they no longer have to use just their imaginations to understand the location's terrifying history. Just as they get the film's first shot rolling, one of Alex's friends disappears, and she's nearly certain she saw a cloaked stranger lurking in the shadows. Dun dun dun. As more members of the group begin to meet an untimely demise, Alex is desperate to stop the bloodshed, even if it means facing a monster she never thought would be let loose. I love retellings, and that this is a Dracula retelling, I think is super, super cool. I mean, there's already been so many stories about vampires. It's really hard to find something like fresh and new, but I feel like this is like a fresh new take on the Dracula story. So I think it sounds really cool. If you think Go Hunt Me also sounds cool, it'll be available on June 14th. My fifth pick for June is going to be Breaking Time by Sasha Alsberg. Now, this one might sound a little bit familiar to you because it is about when a mysterious Scottishman suddenly appears in the middle of the road. Clara thinks the biggest problem is whether she hit him with her car. But as impossible as it sounds, Callum has stepped out of another time, and it's just the beginning of a deadly adventure. Clara will soon learn that she is the last pillar of time, an anchor point in the timeline of the world and a hiding place for a rogue goddess's magic. Callum believes he's fated to protect her at all costs. After being unable to protect the previous pillar, his best friend, Thomas. A dark force is hunting the pillars to claim the power of the goddess, and Clara and Callum are the only two people standing in the way. Thrown together by fate, the two have to learn to trust each other and work together, but they'll need to protect their hearts from one another if they're going to survive. So the whole, time travel, Scottish Highlands, obviously this book sounds a lot like Outlander, if you're familiar at all with the Outlander series. But this is more of like a YA type take, and obviously we've got some more magical stuff going on with goddesses and pillars of time, etc., etc. I still think it sounds like a super cool story, so if you think Breaking Time sounds like a super cool story, it'll be available on June 14th. My sixth pick for June, and I know I'm probably not going to pronounce this right, is going to be Lapvona by Otessa Moshfegh. Again, I know I'm not pronouncing that right, so I'm sorry, but this is supposed to be a medieval type fantasy, and this sounds really, really, really cool. So, little Merrick, the abused and delusional son of the village shepherd, never knew his mother. His father told him she died during childbirth. One of life's few consolations for Merrick is his enduring bond with the blind village midwife, Ina, who suckled him when he was a baby, as she did so many of the village's children. Ina's gifts extend beyond childcare. She possesses a unique ability to communicate with the natural world. Her gift often brings her the transmission of sacred knowledge on levels far beyond those available to other villagers, however religious they might be. For some people, Ina's home in the woods outside the village is a place to fear and avoid, a godless place. Among their numbers is Father Barnabas, the town priest and lackey for the depraved lord and governor William, whose hilltop manor contains a secret embarrassment of riches. The people's desperate need to believe that there are powers that be who have their best interests at heart is put to a cruel test by William and the priest, especially in this year of record drought and famine. But when fate brings Merrick into violent proximity to the Lord's family, new and occult forces upset the old order. By the year's end, the veil between blindness and sight, life and death, the natural world and the spirit world will prove to be very thin indeed. So, again, this is supposed to take place in basically a medieval fiefdom. So it's a medieval historical fiction, but also, obviously, we've got a little bit of fantasy thrown in here. I just love everything about this book. I love fantasy that takes place in different time periods. So this definitely meets that need. If it sounds like a book that might need your needs, Lapvona will be available on June 21st. My 7th pick for June is a super cool sounding book called The Ballad of Perilous Graves by Alex Jennings. NOLA is a city of wonders, New Orleans, if you don't know what NOLA means. A place of sky trolleys and dead calves, where haints dance the night away and wise women help keep the order. To those from away, NOLA might seem strange. To Perilous Graves, it's simply home. In a world of everyday miracles, Perry might not have a talent for magic, but he does know NOLA's rhythm as intimately as his own heartbeat. So when the city's great magician starts appearing in odd places and essential songs are forgotten, Perry realizes trouble is afoot. 9 songs of power have escaped from the piano that maintains the city's beat, and without them, NOLA will fail. Unwilling to watch his home be destroyed, Perry will sacrifice everything to save it. But a storm is brewing, and Haint of all Haints is awake. NOLA's time might be coming to an end. Put on your dancing shoes and enjoy this song for New Orleans, the city of music, magic, and dreams. I mean, this sounds so cool. It's described as funny, wild, witty, and profound. So I don't know where the humor comes in, but I love a good book that has some sort of humor in it, even if it's just a small amount. So again, we've got magic, we've got humor, we've got music. I think that's a really cool element here. And I think New Orleans is such a great location for any story. So The Ballad of Perilous Graves sounds amazing to me. If it sounds amazing to you, it'll be available on June 21st. Book number 8 is going to be Blood and Moonlight by Erin Beatty. This is a new author debut story. Check this out. Rising above the city of Calais and the holy sanctum, and watching over its spires is Katrin, an orphan girl with unique skills, for she alone can spot the building's flaws in construction before they turn deadly. But when Katrin witnesses a murderer escaping the scene of his crime, she's pulled into a dangerous chain of events where the only certainty is that the killer will strike again. Assigned to investigate is the mysterious and brilliant Simon, whose insights into the mind of a predator are frighteningly accurate. As the grisly crimes continue, Katrin finds herself caught between killer and detective while hiding her own secret, a supernatural sight granted by the moon, destined to make her an outcast, and the only thing that might save her and those she loves from becoming the next victims. Again, it's another book that combines like fantasy and in this one it's like a thriller. So fantasy plus murder mystery sounds like a super cool combination. So if Blood and Moonlight sounds like something you'd be interested in, it'll be available on June 28th. For book number 9, we have another fantasy debut from a new author, and this one is called This Vicious Grace by Emily Theed. I hope that's how I'm pronouncing her name right. But Emily Theed's exciting fantasy debut, This Vicious Grace, will keep readers turning the pages until the devastating conclusion and leave them primed for more. We'll see. 3 weddings, 3 funerals. Alyssa's gift from the god is supposed to magnify a partner's magic, not kill every suitor she touches. Now, with only weeks left until a hungry swarm of demons devours everything on her island home, Alyssa is running out of time to find a partner and stop the invasion. When a powerful priest convinces the faithful that killing Alyssa is the island's only hope, her own soldiers try to assassinate her. Desperate to survive, Alyssa hires Dante, a cynical outcast marked as a killer, to become her personal bodyguard. But as a rebellion explodes outside the gates, Dante's dark secrets may be the biggest betrayal of all. He holds the key to her survival and her heart, but is he the one person who can help her master her gift or destroy her once and for all? Dun dun dun. So again, obviously fantasy going on here, a bit of a romance going on here. This just sounds again like another super cool story. Obviously, I'm into a lot of fantasy, so that's why there's a lot of fantasy on this list. But if this sounds like a fantasy you might be interested in, This Vicious Grace will be available on June 28th. My 10th pick for June is going to be The Song That Moves the Sun by Anna Bright. And I think this one sounds amazing. Again, amazing. Best friends Aurora and Claudia have never felt more like their lives are spiraling out of control. And when they meet Major and Amir, two boys from one of the secret cities of the spheres, ruled by the magic of the astrological signs, they discover they're not alone. There is a disruption in the harmony between the spheres, and its chaos is spreading. To find the source of the disharmony, Rora and Claudia will embark on a whirlwind journey of secrets, romance, and powerful truths about themselves, about each other, and two long-ago explorers named Dante and Beatrice, who were among the first to chart this course towards the stars. Inspired partly by the classic works of Dante Alighieri, this gorgeous standalone contemporary fantasy will captivate readers of lore and Star Daughter. So if you are a fan of lore, Star Daughter, a fan of Laini Taylor, Alexandra Bracken, V.E. Schwab, they're all being compared to this book, which is very, very, very high praise. I love Dante. I love Dante's Inferno. I love all that. So that's one thing going for it. I love Laini Taylor and V.E. Schwab and Alexandra Bracken. Another good thing going for it. This book is way up on the hype train has left the station. I have super high expectations for this book. So if it sounds like something that you'd like to get on the hype train for, The Song That Moves the Sun will be available on June 28th. So that brings me to, that was 10. So now I have 2 more that I'm sticking on here because I didn't want to leave either of these off. And the first one, this one's going to sound bizarre, but stick with me. And that is going to be Katzenjammer by Francesca Zappia. And once I read the description, you'll know why I had to put this book on this list. So, Kat lives in high school. Yes, Kat. Actual cat or just person named Kat? We don't know. Kat lives in her high school. She never leaves, and for a long time, her school has provided her with everything she needs. But now, things are changing. The hallways contract and expand along with the school's breathing, and the showers in the bathroom run a bloody red. Kat's best friend is slowly turning into cardboard, and instead of a face, Kat has a cat mask instead of her own hardened flesh. Kat doesn't remember why she is trapped in her school, or why half of them, Kat included, are slowly transforming. Escaping has always been the one impossibility in her school's upside-down world. But to save herself from the eventual self-destruction of all the students face, Kat must find a way out. And to do that, she'll have to remember what put her there in the first place. Using chapters alternating between past and present, acclaimed author Francesca Zappia weaves a spine-tingling, suspenseful, and haunting story about tragedy and the power of memories. Fans of This Is Where It Ends and One of Us Is Lying will lose themselves in the pages of this novel, or maybe in the treacherous hallways of the school. I wanted to put this at the end. It says, includes interior illustrations from author. I thought that was an interesting thing to stick on there that suggests there's illustrations in this book, which I totally love. I think this sounds like a super, super cool story. It's a story that obviously I have no idea what's going on, and I find that really refreshing. So if you think that this book sounds refreshing to you, Katzenjammer will be available on June 28th. And that brings me to the last book on my list. This shouldn't be any surprise, and that's going to be Our Cricket Hearts by Melissa Albright. Yes, this book is coming out on June 28th. I was lucky enough to read an advanced copy of this book. I've already done a full review and breakdown of it. I will link that video above if you want to go check it out if you missed it. But I had to include it on this list because even though, yes, I did have some issues with it, I still found it enjoyable and I still think it's worth a read. So those are all my picks for June. If you've made it to the end of the video, thank you so much for sticking with me. Hopefully by the next time I make a video, my voice will be a little bit better. We'll see what happens. I'm gonna go back to bed and probably take a nap before I edit this video. I don't know when I'm actually gonna post it, but hopefully it's sometime soon. All that rambling to say, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're not already, please subscribe to my channel for more bookish videos. Your support will really help me get through my recovery here from being sick. So thank you so much and happy reading.